Hi, this is Michelle Caskey from Homeschool-Your-Boys.com, and today I'm going to talk about step 2 of yearly planning. So here we go. Alright, so the second step for my yearly planning that I try to do is I actually go through each of my subjects and figure out how much I will need to have my boys complete each week in order to finish by the end of the year. So this is just kind of a rough idea, but I will go ahead and give you an example. One of the programs that I'm planning to use with one of my sons this year is American Literature by Apologia. So here's the textbook, and when you're using a textbook, it's actually pretty easy to figure out how much you need to do each week in order to complete this in a year. So first thing you do is you go to the table of contents. And here's the table of contents for this one. I actually flip to the end. Alright, so you can see here, there's 18 chapters. So, the normal school year is 36 weeks. So if there's 18 chapters, it means you need to do one chapter every 2 weeks. So then I like to go through the book and I will take a look at what completing a chapter actually entails. Here's the introduction. Okay, so here's part 1, and I do like to have them read the introduction if it's intended for them and not for the parent, because lots of times there's some good information in there about completing the program. But then here's part 1, and then keep going through. This is talking about the colonial age here. There's lots of great information about the history of that era, kind of puts some of the readings that they are going to be doing into context. And then this is still just chapter 1. So I go through all of chapter 1. You can see here, chapter 1 is pretty large. There's a lot of reading, and then there are questions as well. So, and like I was just, still chapter 1. So what I do, I basically go through the whole book. Chapter 1, okay, there's chapter 2. So chapter 1 is all of this. So I go through the entire book. And put that aside for a second. I will come up with half a chapter a week, is what I was saying. So then I go through and figure out, okay, the intro is pages 9 to 15. And then part 1 is pages 17 to 28. And then there's information about the Cherokee. And then there's questions to answer. And all of that I'm planning to have them do week 1. So, and then week 2 is read William Bradford, answer questions, read Mary Rowlandson, answer questions, and a test. So anyway, I do that for the entire book. So you can see here, there's quite a lot. This is a super beefy curriculum. So I go through the whole thing, and I start getting a little bit, you see I have Q and R instead of reading questions after a while here. And there's actually more reading for this. I was finding out as I was going through and doing my planning, like they have you read The Great Gatsby. That's not included in this book. They have you read The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. That's not included. The Old Man and the Sea, and that's not included. To Kill a Mockingbird, and that's not included. So anyway, this is I wrote down the things. They've got Huckleberry Finn, A Raisin in the Sun. Those aren't included. So I have written down, I actually said read whatever chapters, like this one, read The Great Gatsby, chapters 1 through 5, for week 26 here. And also read the intro information in the book about F. Scott Fitzgerald. Yeah, so then it's really easy for me if I'm going to have my son complete this in one school year. Super beefy. So I'm actually going to start out with that intention and see how he does. This particular son is a super fast reader, so I think he's actually going to be able to handle it. If I were having my other son do this, I might break it into a 2-year plan, and then I could just go ahead and break everything apart even further and have him do half as much in a year, just because, you know, it takes him, he doesn't read as quickly. He reads a lot more in depth. He's a lot more like my husband. They read slower, but they remember what they're reading a lot more in depth than my other son and I both read very quickly, and then it's kind of in and out, you know. It's like, remember it for a while, and then it's like, who was the main character of that book? So anyway, that is the next step of planning your year. For this, I do that for each curriculum that I'm using. This is American Lit, so I would do that for that. Now I'm also planning to do American Lit for my other son, although he is not as fast of a reader. So I am actually looking back at some books that my older son really enjoyed as we were going through some of the previous years, and I'm going to start out having him read some of those books. So like I have Old Yeller and The Hunger Games and 1984. That was a favorite of mine when I was growing up. The Hiding Place, that's a huge, amazing book. So basically I just compiled a bunch of different American authors that I have heard good things about or that I have enjoyed myself, and then I'm going to have him read some of those books versus trying to jam too much information in the poor kid's head throughout the year as far as American Lit goes. So if you're doing a class where you don't have a textbook that you're going through, but you're going to use real books, these are the ones I'm planning to cover with him. I, you know, can always modify that very easily. Like I said in a previous video when I was talking about record keeping, I keep all of this on the computer so that I can very easily change it up. I can add in different books if I change my mind on one. I can just erase different books if he doesn't quite get to them, and then I can reprint out the sheet. So it makes it very easy to do my planning and to do my record keeping. So for this son, I will go ahead and see how many chapters there are for the first book, and I will kind of have an idea of how much I could expect out of him for reading each week, and I will just go ahead and schedule that in, and we'll go from there. Now I'm also planning to have my sons go through this 1-year adventure novel with for learning how to write a novel. They're both really interested in writing right now, so I've heard good things about this one, and interested in trying to help them to learn more about writing and keeping it light and interesting. So we're going to try this curriculum. Now, to figure out how much we need to cover here, I look at the contents, just like I did for the other book, and go to the end. And this one actually has 78 chapters, so it's not quite as straightforward as to how many you would do per week. I was actually planning to do 2 per week, and then I was reading in the teacher's guide that they actually recommend 3 per week. So I will start out with doing 3 lessons per week and see how that goes. Again, I can always gear that down if it is just too much to handle for 1 year. So we will see how that goes. I like to, it's always easier to ramp it down than it is to speed it up. If your kids get used to doing one lesson a week, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, let's do 4 lessons a week. They might rebel a little bit more, but if you start out with 3 or 4 and then it's just too much, they're a lot more receptive to saying, yeah, let's do 1 or 2 a week. So anyway, that's how we are going to handle that curriculum this year. Next step is for me to take all the subjects that I'm planning to teach my son and to write down how many days a week they need to do that subject in order to either complete the textbook or to get enough time in for me to count it as either half credit or full credit. So yeah, so anyway, I kind of go ahead, and after I've done that, like, let's see, American Lit is 5 days a week, so obviously that's Monday through Friday. Same thing with math. Now, foreign language, I'm only going to have them do this son do on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that should be plenty of time for him to be able to get done what he needs to get done. Writing, I'm doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so you can see I have different amounts of time for the different subjects. And then I create this type of a schedule so that I know that the days are fairly even as far as the amount of work I'm expecting them to do. I do want them to have extra time for writing because that's something that they are enjoying right now, and I want them to be able to spend as much time as they want on that and not to be bogged down too much with everything else. So I know devotions is what that stands for, something they do every day, and then phys ed is something they just naturally get in, especially during the basketball season. So I won't actually schedule that out each day. They'll just get that in naturally. Portuguese, that will be fairly quick. So yeah, so anyway, just trying to make sure they have at least a couple days a week where they can have an extended writing period in there. So, and then this is the schedule for my other son. Very similar, although he's going to be doing podcasting and blacksmithing versus photography, because those are things he's really interested in right now. And you can see blacksmithing I just even have on Saturdays, although he may also do some of that during the week and at night. So, and then I did something similar where I come up with a schedule like this. And that's basically it for the yearly planning. Next, there will be weekly planning that I need to do, and I will create a separate video for how I do my weekly plannings. So as you can see, yearly homeschool planning does not have to be that difficult. There's just a couple of things that I want to remind you of. One is that you do not need to complete every lesson if you're using a textbook. It is perfectly acceptable for you to cross off some of those lessons and just do what you think will be the most beneficial for your child. So I wanted you to keep that in mind for sure. The other thing is that you do not need to figure out all the details when you're doing your yearly planning. Save some of that prep work for when you're doing your weekly planning. And I will actually talk about weekly planning in my next planning video. So make sure you take a look for that. I will have that out very shortly. And in the meantime, if you have any questions about homeschool planning or lesson planning, I would love to hear what they are. So if you would leave a comment below and let me know what it is that you're wondering about, I will try to answer that in an upcoming video. So again, this is Michelle Caskey from Homeschool-Your-Boys.com, and I hope you have a wonderful day.